Imagine if you could have a position in life where you were 72, 73 years old, right before required minimum distribution start, and you have done the hard work, you've done the heavy lifting, you've converted all of your money into a Roth, and you can say, I will never have to pay taxes on this money ever again.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. I'm Paula Christine. So last week we talked to Chris Cyr about how to choose a good financial planner. So I've asked him back this week to talk about the top 3 mistakes that people make when planning for their retirement. Now, normally his first 2 top mistakes would be choosing the right financial planner, and the second one is making sure that you had a plan. But we already talked about that last week, so just go back and listen to episode 90 or 91. So we're going to make him talk about 3 other mistakes, not make him, but we're going to ask him to talk about 3 other mistakes that people make when planning for their retirement. So welcome back, Chris.
Hi, Paula. Thanks for having me back again. I really appreciate it.
Oh, me too.
Talking with you as always.
I know, this is going to be fun. So we'll just say this is number 3. So what's the third mistake people make?
So I think the biggest thing that I try and stress with people is not being too optimistic. Underestimating what I call the bad things. What are the bad things? Your budget, your expenses.
So many people underestimate that. I just want to share a quick story. When I was working with a gentleman who told me he spent like $1,000 a month on food and going out to eat. But when we really sat down and looked at his credit card bills, it was like almost $2,000. So how can you say that this is all I'm going to spend if in reality you're actually spending double?
Okay, this is a great conversation. So just yesterday, this happens all the time. I love doing this to people, helping them understand what they spend. Now, there is one way to do it, like you said, going through a shoebox of expenses or whatever it is. I prefer the top-down approach. So it starts very simply like this. You and your spouse make $200,000 a year. Where did the money go? Because when that couple sits in your office and tells you that they spend $2,500 a month, and you say, no,
you don't.
You made $200,000 last year. Let's figure out where it went. And then you do the back work and you find out that they're spending $8,000 a month.
So when people came to me for retirement planning, I would say, what's your net income? And they would go, $8,000 a month we bring home. How much do you save? None. Okay, so you're spending $8,000 a month. That's it. Mm-hmm. No, we're not. Yes, you are.
I mean, you could look at the paycheck, right? They're obviously somebody's going to their health insurance, probably.
Yeah, no. Then what you bring home?
Taxes. Yeah,
what you bring home, and if you're not putting any money in savings, then you're blowing it.
And then another thing people do wrong is they say, "Well, I put $500 a month into my savings account." Oh, okay, so that's good. That's $6,000 a year you're saving. So what's the balance in your savings account? It's $10,000. What was the balance in your savings account a year ago? About $10,000. So while you're putting in $6,000 a year, you're also taking it out. And so, but that is a huge thing. It's not just your expenses. The healthcare costs are huge in retirement. So many people underestimate those healthcare costs, and they don't go up with inflation. We know that healthcare costs go up 5-6% per year. And then everyone just thinks that they're going to be healthy their entire life. Nobody wants to think about going to a nursing home. And the fact of the matter is that almost half of Americans are going to need some sort of paid long-term care in their life. So that's a huge mistake.
Not me.
Not me. I'm going to be healthy forever.
Well, if you say 50%, I already said not me before you did. So you're on the hook. You got it. You picked it.
But underestimating the bad things.
You know what most people underestimate too, and it isn't covered under Medicare, is dental, hearing aids, and your vision. Because, you think about having to get a tooth pulled or what's those things called now?
Like a bridge, molar, I don't know.
I can't think of what it's called. I can't think of what it's called, but where they put a fake tooth in, whatever it's called. I can't think what it's called, but anyway, if you don't have insurance, those things are like thousands. And where's that going to come from?
That's a great discussion too, because people just know that they're getting Social Security and that Part B is coming out of the paycheck, and maybe they're paying $3,500 a year for that. And you tell them that you're planning for $6,000 a year in retirement for healthcare, and they disagree with you. And then you bring up those things. The teeth doesn't cover teeth. How about those glasses you're wearing? Yeah,
hearing aids.
It doesn't.
Hearing aids.
Yeah,
A hearing aid is like $4,000 or $5,000 for a hearing aid. That's so expensive. So expensive.
Absolutely.
So you almost have to.
We're dragging on here, but another thing is put a forever car payment in your plan.
I agree.
Right? My car's paid off. Oh yeah, and you're going to drive it for the next 30 years? No.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, I always say that because take that money out of your expenses and put it into a bank account. Now you need a car. You can probably almost pay cash for it. Or if you have to finance, because cars have gotten way too expensive, if you have to finance it, then you're financing a smaller amount. That's always been my philosophy.
I think that's a great philosophy. As long as you're planning for it, that's the main thing.
Okay, so that's mistake number 3. What's 4?
So number 4, I'm a little bit biased because I'm a CPA. I've been a CPA for longer than I want to admit. But I think it's awfully funny and maybe ironic that the person that you're entrusting to your life savings, your life's work, when you ask them a question about taxes, many advisors will say, I don't know, you need to speak to your tax advisor. Now, the last time I checked, the market goes up about 8-9% a year, and the top tax rate is about 40%. So discounting taxes can be one of the biggest mistakes. And of course, not every advisor needs to be a CPA, but I think it's critical. A level 5 advisor, I think there's 5 levels of advisors. The top level advisors are giving great tax perspective and planning, whether it's a Roth conversion, whether it's minimizing your R&Ds, whether it's looking at your tax brackets as you're retiring. I think that's a huge void, and one of the biggest mistakes people make in retirement is not having a keen eye on taxes. That's what I think.
I think, and I know I've always encouraged my clients and I still do today when I talk in my courses and stuff, is having 3 buckets of money when you get into retirement. The pre-tax, which would be your traditional IRAs, 401ks, after tax, which would be your Roth, and then the non-qualified bucket, which is your capital gains, potentially ordinary income, but having 3 of those. So when you get into retirement, and I just had this conversation with someone the other day about everything over, if you take $1,000 out over the 12% tax bracket, that's going to be taxed at 22%. Well, that's a huge amount of money, but if you need that money, you're going to have to pay those taxes. But if I can take it from a Roth or I can take it from a non-qualified bucket, I don't have to worry about paying that 22%. But you're right. Most advisors don't understand that concept.
No. I had one of the biggest things that we do in our practice, because we're CPAs, is for every single retiree, we're at least looking at the possibility of doing a Roth conversion early in retirement. And it doesn't make sense for everybody. But it's almost like, having a plan that you forgot to think about taxes or Social Security. I think Roth conversion should be an automatic check mark that you have to tackle. I think it's the biggest potential opportunity for a generation of savers out there. It's not for everybody, but so of course we're using the number 1 planning tool in the industry, and it's a great tool. But back in the day, because as I said earlier, I've been a CPA for a long time, we built our own Roth conversion calculators, and that spreadsheet, there's a way you can find out how many formulas are in your spreadsheet. And before we were using what is now this automated tool to look at Roth conversion, it had over 60,000 formulas in the Roth conversion analysis spreadsheet. It's a very complicated thing. And if you don't get in the hands of the right person who knows what they're doing, it can be dangerous. But anyway, not having tax planning in the retirement process, I think, is a huge mistake to keep in mind.
I know I often talk with people and they're like, well, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket at retirement. I'm like, really? What are you going to cut out of what you're already living on to be in a lower tax bracket? And it's not likely that you're going to do that. Things are going to increase. you're going to travel. You're going to have healthcare costs that you didn't have before. So sometimes you may need a little bit more money in retirement than you have coming in today. So I think, again, we go back to what we talked about last week, is just making sure that you have a plan in place with an advisor who knows and understands tax law as well as investing and budgeting and all those things.
And just quickly, so we did talk about it last week. I find, generally speaking, if you're waiting to take your Social Security later, maximizing that amount of Social Security. Is that income taxable? Yes. We talked last week about putting income into your plan to help your chances of retirement success. Is that income taxable? Generally, yes. On top of that, now you have a person with $1 million in an IRA, and what's their required minimum distribution going to be? You add those three things up in a solid financial plan, your client is in a high tax bracket, paying a lot of taxes. And to your point, people assume they're not going to be paying taxes in retirement, and that's not necessarily the case.
Also, if you're a married couple and your spouse dies, you're automatically in a higher tax bracket.
Yeah.
People don't realize that.
I think one thing is certain, that tax rates are going to go up. And who knows what the future holds. And just imagine, and again, this is not the best for everybody. Roth conversion is a very delicate analysis, but just imagine potentially being in a place where you have paid all the taxes on all your life savings, right? Because we all know when people come in with $1 million in their 401k, do they really have $1 million? No, they have $750,000 because 25% or more of that is actually the government's money. They're just waiting to get their hands on it. Imagine if you could have a position in life where you were 72, 73 years old, right before required minimum distribution start, and you have done the hard work, you've done the heavy lifting, you've converted all of your money into a Roth, and you can say, I will never have to pay taxes on this money ever again. And my advisor has done such a great job. I have this other income coming in that this nest egg is going to grow and grow and grow. And when I give it to my kids, they're not going to pay taxes on it either. That's a powerful thing to have in your tool belt. All right, we're too much. Taxes. Don't avoid taxes. Taxes are crucial in retirement planning. Sorry for dragging that.
And if your advisor is not talking to you about that, it means they don't understand it.
Absolutely.
But I think also your advisor and your CPA should be talking together. They should be working together. Yeah. And I know
or being a CPA as an advisor.
Hey.
Sorry, shameless plug.
Yes, shameless plug. Because I'm just as good as you, and I'm not a CPA. What are you going to say to that one?
Do you want to know what my last topic is that I want to talk to people about avoiding this mistake in retirement?
What is? I'm afraid.
It's Social Security.
Oh, yeah.
This is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, Social Security. I know what you're going to say. Delay it as long as possible.
Yeah.
But there's some reasons to take it early. If you don't have any money or not enough money. Obviously,
this is not a blanket statement. This is a generalization that we're talking about, all these things. Yeah. Everyone's situation is different.
Yeah, I can make a case for all different circumstances, but I can put it into the plan and see which one makes sense. But if you're not working with somebody that has done those plans for you, then you're likely to make a mistake and choose at the wrong time.
So first and foremost, I think the cards are stacked against Americans for several reasons when it comes to Social Security. Number one, it's very inherent in us to want to get our hands on that money. We have worked our whole life for it. We've been paying into it. I want my money. I want what's coming to me. That's just a natural human instinct to want that, number one. But number two, guess who else wants you to take that early? The federal government. Because they know most of the time, if you take it early, they're going to be paying you less. I look at a couple who walks into my office, they're 65 years old. They want to take their Social Security right now. They're both retiring today. And I ask them why, and the reasons we just discussed. But then I show up, we do the analysis, and I say, now, wait a second. is one of you going to live to be more than 80 years old? Yeah, probably. My mom's 92. Okay. The government actually wants you to take this money right now because they know one of you is going to be sitting there at age 92, 93 years old, collecting a Social Security check that could have been $1,000 more per month. And, in my opinion, they fool you. When you take Social Security early at 62, it's called what? Early retirement. That's so sexy, right? What do they call it when you wait until 70? Delayed credits. I mean, and then, so it's just the cards are stacked against Americans. And I'll say one more thing. Typically, advisors charge a fee based on the amount of assets that they are managing for you. So as an advisor, if the only thing I'm thinking about is getting paid, that means I want your assets to be as high as possible. That's just intuitive. And
I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, but that's okay.
I mean, I was just, right? The more money my client has, generally, the bigger my fee that I get to collect.
Correct.
So
but
if I am talking my client into waiting until age 70, where are they going to get their money from if they're going to be retiring at age 65 and they're not going to get their Social Security until 70? For 5 years, they're going to be draining their accounts that I am managing, and my fee that I get to charge them is less because they're taking money out of the accounts. This is the advisors are against this philosophy also. That's my opinion.
That's your opinion. I don't know that I necessarily would agree that somebody would put I hope that they wouldn't put their pocketbook in front of their clients.
I'm saying if you did have an advisor who was looking at fees as his primary motivation.
So what do you let's say you're doing a plan for a 30-year-old, how do you have that conversation with them about Social Security? Because most of them believe it's not going to be there.
Yeah, I strongly believe, and nobody knows the future, I strongly believe that Social Security will never go away. That's a bold statement. I do use two examples when I talk to young people about Social Security. A person who made $200,000 last year in income put the same amount of money into the Social Security system as the richest people in the world, right? It's capped. I think that it's funny that Elon Musk and me paid the same amount of money into the Social Security system last year, right? That one little change, it's researched and documented, could help make Social Security last forever, right? Let's tax it up to $500,000. But another thing that I think about is, could they, and I always point to a young junior advisor in my office who's 28 years old, could they delay his Social Security so that he can't take it at 62? Short answer is, I tell my young people that there is going to be Social Security. It's not going to be gone, but it might be much different and not as nice as it is now. So we need to plan accordingly and almost pretend like Social Security will not be there, even though I just said it will be.
I always tell my young people that I talk with, just plan on it not being there. And if it is, great. What kind of vacations are you going to have?
Yeah. I think back to our first episode, if you have the right financial planner, you're making good decisions about Social Security. And I do believe that the number one, do you know what the number one claiming strategy for Social Security is?
Number one claiming. Yeah. Well, I think it's that mentality that I've worked so hard, I'm going to collect it. But they do forget that they're, likely to live a lot longer. When I think about my grandfather, when he retired, you retired and you lived, 6 or 7 years after your retirement and you died, but so you collected it when you had, just longevity wasn't, isn't as strong as it is today. I don't know if strong is the right word, but people are living much longer. If you think about how many people that are in their 90s and how many people are in their 100. And I know people have a hard time with that when you talk about planning. Oh no, I'm not going to be here at 85. Well, what if you are?
Statistics say a 65-year-old couple one of you is going to live to be past age 90.
Well, see,
Because the average life expectancy is 77, but that's for a baby who was just born. When you're looking at two 65-year-old people, one of them most likely is going to live to the age 90. So, and back to what you're saying about your grandfather, I don't know what his situation was, but I always tell that person, well, your spouse is going to get your Social Security potentially.
Yes.
And you have to think about both people.
Right.
And then finally.
Wait. I want to go back to this.
Go ahead.
And I've never understood this. So are you saying that I have to get married to live longer?
Think about as a marriage, think about it in one heartbeat.
Yeah. Is that how it goes?
That's the way that's the way I explain it to people.
Okay. So I'm not opposed to getting married again, but I hope that has nothing to do with my longevity.
No. You should not get married for financial reasons, Paula. Okay.
Trust me. Trust me. That is, I can take care of myself.
I say to people when they say, I'm not going to be here that long, I want to get my money now, what if I die early? I say, look, there are two possible discussions that I want to run by you. Discussion number one is that your financial advisor convinced you to wait to take your Social Security to age 70. For 5 years, you were retired and you despised your advisor the whole time because you didn't take your Social Security at 65, you waited till 70. You heeded his advice, right? And then what happens? He dies at age 75. Gosh darn it, the advisor was wrong. He should have taken his money right away. That discussion that I am having with his family in my office is not about why in the world how dare you tell my deceased husband that he should have waited for Social Security until age 70. That's not the discussion. The husband just passed away prematurely. He was 76 years old. Everyone's sad. Okay, so he didn't get as much Social Security as he could have, right? The discussion is centered around the family, bereavement. What are we going to do next? What's the will say? Do the trust documents, are they in order? The other situation is the person who takes their Social Security as soon as possible against Chris Cyr's advice. They decided to take it at 62, and now they walk into my office. Now they're 95 years old, and they say, boy, I am running out of money. I should have waited to take my Social Security. I would rather be the person who took it at 70 and is having the discussion of the first story as opposed to coming to my financial advisor's office and saying, I should have waited to 70. You know the difference between Social Security at age 62 and 70, right? It goes up 8% a year. It's like 76% difference. So, all right, that's my three things. Sorry to talk so much, Paul.
I agree with you 100%, especially when it is a married couple, that having that larger amount of money for that surviving spouse is so much, it's a huge relief for that surviving spouse. And I think a lot of men ultimately want to take care of their wives, and that we tend to live longer. And it's important to make sure that their lifestyle it's going to change, but doesn't have to dramatically change.
This is great conversation. I would just wish that we could extend this podcast for another hour, because I have like 7 or 8 things we could talk about.
Well, you can always have me on your podcast.
Okay, it's a deal.
It's a deal. So how does somebody get a hold of you if they want to talk to you?
So I think the best way to get a hold of me, I have a podcast because obviously I like to talk about this stuff. And the podcast is called Retirement for Life. And so there's a million ways to get a hold of people these days, but the easiest way I say is just go to retirementforlife.com. That is everything about my podcast, what we talk about, and that's the easiest way to talk more about all this great stuff, retirementforlife.com.
Well, thanks for being my guest. I really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll be back together soon.
It was truly, truly a pleasure, Paula. Thank you.
You're welcome. So if anybody'd like to get a hold of me, you can reach me at paulachristine.com, or you can check out my website at paulachristine.com. So thanks again, Chris.
Take care.
You too.